Morning, everyone. Happy New Year. It is 2018. We're kicking off 2018 with our first board meeting here on January 9th. Looking forward to a great year. We'll go ahead and start this morning with a moment of reflection. Please join us in that moment. Thank you. Supervisor Gibbon, can you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let's go to introduction of new employees. Heather.
Good morning and Happy New Year. I'm happy to tell you that we have a certified public health nurse working with us, Elizabeth Hassman, and she's returning to county employment. She's been with us previously, so Elizabeth is here and wanted to say hello to you. Thank you.
Good morning, Elizabeth.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to introduce myself. As Heather indicated, I'm a public health nurse. I've been working in this county and living here for a number of years. I raised my family here, and it's a pleasure to be working for public health once again, as I believe that public health is very important in supporting our community and making sure that we're as strong as possible. So thank you for your time, and it's a pleasure to be working here again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you staying with us.
Yes.
Any other introductions of new employees at this time? I see the sheriff moving towards the podium. Good morning, Sheriff Aberson.
Happy New Year. Well, I have a lot of good news today, and I will try to get through this as efficiently as I can, but I'm not going to hurry because it's cause for celebration. So I'd like to call Michelle Banks, Rebecca Harmon, and Danielle Southard up, please. So board and guests, what you see today are a new correctional officer, we have a new correctional technician, and a new dispatcher. So we're excited to have them all on board. I'll tell you just a little bit about them. In the middle, Michelle Banks, born in Eureka, didn't really want me to say that because she's lived in Crescent City her whole life.
Excuse me, Sheriff, I can't see one of the individuals. She wants to hide behind you, so hoping she could scoot over. There, why don't you join your friends over here on this side? There you go. Excellent.
Michelle graduated from Del Norte High. When I asked her why she wanted to be here, she says she loves this community, wants to stay, and wants to build a career. So we're very excited to have her on board. Rebecca, the notably shy one in the group, is our newest dispatcher. Born in Riverside, she attended Cal Poly Pomona and moved to Del Norte in 2015. Danielle Southard, I probably know a little bit more about, as I taught her in high school briefly, and she graduated early from Castle Rock. Did not want me to mention that she wrestled in high school. And she started as a correctional tech and recently promoted to correctional officer. And they're ready to answer any questions if you have any.
Tons of questions up here. But you're certainly welcome to make a statement. We really appreciate you having you here today. Not all at once, guys. Go ahead. Don't be shy. Jerry's the only one that bites.
Not hard. Congratulations, ladies. Welcome.
Congratulations.
You did good. And I'm not done. I would like to call John Gale and Brian Donahue up, please. Now, if you notice, these two gentlemen have different uniforms on, and there's two separate things happening today. I'll administer the oath of office, and that part is going to be the same, but what's going to be different is it's two different organizations. John Gale represents our newest hire as a deputy. And sometimes it's challenging to hire deputies, and we're excited to get him on board. He was born and raised in Fresno, graduated college from Fresno State with a BS in criminology, moved to Weed, California for wife's job as she's a professor at a college of the Siskiyous, moved to Del Norte County because it's the best county in Northern California with the ocean, rivers, mountains, and redwoods, end quote. Brian Donahue, born in Arcata, raised in Del Norte County, graduated from Castle Rock High School, and has been a Yurok tribal police officer for 5.5 years.
Wow,
So
it's huge.
it's no secret that we've been trying to get this cross-deputization going between the Yurok Tribal Police and the Del Norte County Sheriff's Office. It's taken a little bit longer than I would have liked. But a lesson here is, you can do things quickly and you can do them correctly. And sometimes those two objectives have a different timetable. So with Brian here, what this represents is a lot of effort and a lot of collaborative effort between multiple organizations, Yurok Tribe, Tribal Police, Del Norte County Sheriff's Office, and we've come together and developed a mechanism that will stand the test of time and continue to bring a higher level of law enforcement to our county overall. So very exciting. With John, he's somebody that applied, I met, we instantly liked him, we brought him through the interview process. Of course, he was subjected to every background and other sort of prerequisite we need to satisfy post requirements and our hiring policies. And again, we're very excited to have him on board too. So with that, I would like to administer the oath of office. Is Katie here? I know I just met her. Katie, this is John's wife. At the end of the oath of office, she will be pinning his badge on him from the Del Norte County Sheriff's Office. So I will hand that to you now before I lose it. And gentlemen, we're going to do this at the same time. If I can get you to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, John Neal,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely,
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well
and that I will well
and faithfully discharge
and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties about which I am about to enter.
The duties upon which I am about to enter.
Duties of which upon I'm about to enter.
I do this too. I got to make the sentence a little bit smaller. We're going to get through this, fellas. The duties upon which
The duties upon which
I am about to enter.
I am about to enter.
Deputy Sheriff.
Deputy Sheriff.
Congratulations. She knows where the cameras are.
That's a good wife.
It's not the easiest thing to get on.
Especially when everybody's watching. Just get it close. Then it's his responsibility. Everybody got their pictures? Thank you.
Eric, I see some of our friends here from the Yurok Tribal Council. I'm wondering if they would like to say anything about this moment.
Sure.
Just curious. Absolutely, Sue.
And looking in the back of the room, I do see former Chief Mast, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention him. We started this process together. So Leonard, good work, and thank you.
Hi, good morning. David Jinshaw Sr., Vice Chairman, Yurok Tribe. Yeah, I'd just like to congratulate Mr. Donahue, you know, for his work, and this is a long time coming, you know, that, you know, the tribe can help the Delaware County Sheriff can help the tribe, and we can work together at a greater pace now. And this is beginning, hopefully, and we'd like to see a lot more moving forward, and a lot more work together and share the responsibility of Delaware County and the Yurok tribe. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Chairman. Okay, well, oh, Sue, please come on in. Thank you. And thank you, Leonard, for getting this going.
Susan Maston, the past Yurok Tribal Chair. Just want to say how much I appreciate today as Appreciation Day for law enforcement. Every day these guys go out and put their lives on the line, and I think that we ought to show our appreciation for them and their sacrifices and for their families. To you. Also, I'd like to say that I'm very pleased that we finally have our cross-deputization in place, and I am hopeful that now that we've been through one, that Sheriff Apperson and his team will be able to process more rapidly as we go through. So looking forward to us being able to be a great partner with Delaware County, and I know the citizens of Klamath will feel a lot safer being able to have a cross-deputized officer in Klamath. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Is there any comments that the board would like to make at this time concerning? Okay. We're going to go ahead and move on to our timed item, which is 10:05 public comment period. Members of the public may address the board on matters which are within the jurisdiction of the board. If you're addressing the board regarding a matter listed on the agenda, you may be asked to hold your comments until the board takes up that matter. Please try to limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Kylie, rotate the screen a little bit. Public comment. It's more towards them.
Good morning, Linda Sutter from 5th District. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Last month, you folks signed a lien release through Human Health and Services. And it was completely redacted, so there were no questions asked in regards to that lien release. I discovered after looking through some documents that there was a child support lien regarding this lien release. And so it's my understanding that Child Support Division is the only one that can release a lien on child support arrears. But I don't know, it might be something you want to look into. And it did alert me to the problem that we have a serious child support arrear problem here in Delaware County that you guys might want to, I mean, it's throughout the whole state, but these people, I understand when you fall on hard times, but when you don't fall on hard times and you refuse to pay your obligation, that's outrageous. And one particular case that I know of is Ryan Freeman, who owes about $10,000 in child support arrears, and he made an $8 payment last month towards his child support arrears, and then it just starts over again. That's outrageous. He's a fisherman, and he can afford to pay for lavish vacations, and his attorney, George Mavris, to keep him out of court, but that doesn't do. Now, for another matter, I want you all, when you go to consider the marijuana ordinance that's going to be coming up pretty soon, please do your homework and look up how your constituents voted. Because, Jerry, you're the only one that has almost 50-50. Everybody else voted hundreds yes over legalization, and very few no's. So, folks, you better keep that in mind. This is an election year, and people are a little upset about, the possibility of banning the marijuana issue here and for selling and cultivation. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment. Please. Thank you.
Can I speak, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Please state your name for the record.
Yes. My name is Alan Orton.
Morning, Alan.
And I've been speaking with Mr. Getland about smoking over here in the Veterans Hall.
Mhm.
Is there any other building in this county you can smoke cigarettes in? Any of them? Looks like a no to me. Then why do they get to over there? First he stopped it, then I went in there for a Coke last week, which they almost cussed me because they think I'm the one that did it, and I hope everybody thinks I'm the one that did it. And I said, and this man here at least listened to my problems. They said now they can smoke in there on the weekends and after 5 o'clock. Why would they get to do that? I was drafted right down the hall 51 years ago. My mom graduated here in 1939. Why could they keep doing that? Talk about unhealthy. What if I bring about 10 of them over here that couldn't smoke in here, they'd have to go in the bathroom stall. That's what it's like. The health department lady said they might have to even put different paneling on the walls. That's how unhealthy this is. And how do I get it stopped, or how do I get help to have it stopped? You know, if the health department says we might have to do new paneling, I mean, come on. You guys got the power, and I respect every one of you, especially this man. He got a shop right up from my family shop. Family had that in 1928. His family probably had that before mine did. So there's a lot of respect in this room. But please, if you can make them stop it, and I can do anything about it, I'd love to hang signs up there. And then women can cuss me till they pass away, honestly. So please, thanks for letting me speak in here.
No, thank you for your time. We really appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, can I respond to Mr. Orton?
Yes, Supervisor Gitlin.
Chuck, as he goes by, came to me at one of our town hall meetings at 6 in the morning and brought this to my attention. And I followed it up by sending an email to our CAO, Ms. J. Serena, who then responded that there would be a meeting set up. And then I was pleased to hear that Mr. Orton came back a short time later and says, well, whatever you did, it worked because they're no longer smoking there. So I'd like to get some clarification. It is a public building. We have state law which supports the banning of all smoking of cigarettes. So is there any reason that we should not uphold state law in a county-owned building and ban smoking in the cantina? So I'm going to ask our board to ask that rhetorically and then ask for some follow-up. And if there is none, then I think Mr. Orton should be so noted that we are hearing him and we are adhering to the law. So that having been said, I'll refer it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Gitlin. We'll continue on with public comment, and we could address that here later in the meeting. Please.
Thank you. Donna Westfall, 1st District. And I feel a little embarrassed and foolish because as editor of the online newspaper, CrescentCityTimes.com, I met and listened to Chuck Orton talk about smoking at the cantina. So I wrote an article reflecting new news that I thought that was stopped. Well, I just got a message from Paula and Greg Bianchi, who read my article that smoking stopped at the cantina. So after their walk on the beach, they went into the cantina, and what did they find? People are smoking there. So I would implore you to do what you can. I'll contact Police Chief Minsel, since it's a building in the city limits, and I'll talk to Heidi Kunstl and do whatever I can to see that it is enforced, because I don't know what enforcement means or what the process is to get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment. Good morning, Supervisor.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. It's nice to be here. I know you've got some tough decisions to make today, and I wrote an article, a guest editorial in the Triplicate during Christmas. I don't know how many of you read it. I did have some communication from one supervisor, but I wrote the article, first of all, to explain the experiences I had in the board for 8 years and the type of board we had and our interactions with each other in those 8 years, which I thought we had some pretty doggone good interactions and yet some disagreements. And I think the board that we had set a tone for itself in that we could agree to disagree and not let it get in the way of our going forward in business for this community. And we had a lot of camaraderie in my years on the board and felt like we could go into each other's offices and just josh after board meeting, which, as you well know, sometimes it can get pretty stressful. But in recent boards, have seen a little bit different attitudes. I hope that that can be corrected with all of you, because you're all professionals and you're all good people and you're all on this board for a reason. And in our boards back then, in a 5-year period, every supervisor at least had the opportunity to be a board chair. And that hasn't happened in recent boards. And I think that you need to look at that as board members and find out where you're coming from and a direction you need to do to satisfy this community's needs. A lot of people are very aware of this. And I would hope that every supervisor in a 5-year period could serve one time as a board chair. In recent boards, there have been some chairs that have served 2 years in a row. I think that's self-serving, and I don't think it does this community well, but I have a lot of respect for all of you. You've got a tough job, and you do the best you can as a board member. So with that tone, good luck to you, and thank you so much for allowing me to come up and speak to you, and good luck.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, my name is Scott Foss.
Good morning,
and I
Scott.
represent 143rd Productions. It's been quite a while since I've been in front of the Board of Supervisors, and as Chuck mentioned, 15 years ago when I used to appear in front of the county supervisors and work with everybody, he was definitely correct. I could walk into any one of their offices and talk to each individually, and we really all got on the same page. So since this is my first appearance in quite a few years, I sure hope it gets to go that way, and that's what I'm here today, is really just a quick introduction of myself, or reintroduction. 15 years ago or so, I worked with Mr. Serena and everybody, Ernie Perry, we all worked to build a large event permit process for Del Norte County, because at the time I was trying to bring some large events to some property in Klamath. I used the fairgrounds, the city park. We've done concerts at Whalers Island. And so at this time, I'm reintroducing myself to reintroduce that idea. I've been contacted by a large association of people that back 10, 12 years ago wanted to come to Del Norte County and Curry County for a large event gathering for like a week. So right now I'm working on a Western States rally for 2021 in July, and it'll be a minimum of 6,000 people, up to 15,000 will come as a group. So at this time I'm starting to build the infrastructure for that time period. And from this point on, I'm going to be working with hopefully the fairgrounds and you folks, and maybe out at the port again for some more concerts. I'll leave this where you can pass it. This is one of the first events that I did. Mr. Serena and Mr. Blackburn, everybody's pretty familiar with it. I always worked with the Sheriff's Department, Mr. Wilson, everybody, the fire departments and whatnot, so I'll follow suit and do it in that manner. So like I said, again, this is a quick introduction. I'll be meeting with Mr. Serena later. I'm going to try and be on the next agenda because again, it's an infrastructure for June of 2021, but between now and then I want to bring in economic development with entertainment the years to come. I've just met with the county commissioners in Curry County, Oregon. I was in front of the city council in Gold Beach last night. Pretty much all of Curry County's on board to support me. I possibly may be trying to turn this run into an interstate run, where it'll be a large group of motorcyclists, enthusiasts. It's not the bad boy bikers. It's not the group of people that I invited to my property in the past. It's not Harley Davidson people. It's actually an international group of motorcyclists. They do, for 40 years, they do a national rally somewhere in the United States every year. Now, every 4 years, they come to the Western States. 2017 was held in Salt Lake City. They took over downtown, the fairgrounds, everything. The entire city will give us plenty of reference. The group of people I'm inviting here, quality group of people for an economic development. So I've got to provide 2,500 hotel rooms, 400 RV spaces, tent camping for up to 5,000 people, and then of course entertainment, which will be many venues, private and hopefully the fairgrounds, both Curry County, Del Norte County. So that's where I'm going to start appearing in front of you. And one thing, Mr. Serena and I went through a lot of time period of things were approved but weren't really covered. Back then when the county council was Robert Black, one time the Board of Supervisors, in theory, authorized me to close down Andy Macbeth Airfield in Klamath so that we could use the airfield for a week, set up vending, put on stage for music, do some drag racing. And literally I had Pepsi Corporation, Budweiser Corporation, Harley-Davidson Motor Company were all giving me large amounts of money for sponsorship. So through publication, media, for a year I advertised that we were going to have the drag race, we were going to have the airport. And 2 weeks before the run happened, Mr. Black called me and said, no airport, because he didn't cover some bases that would have made the county liable. Which that's his job, and I understood it, but at the same time, that's a failure to perform the agreement that I signed with my sponsors and with everybody that was coming on board. So I literally failed after a year because I didn't have the airport available, and it was not my fault, or I'm not going to say it was the county's fault, but we didn't cover our bases. So that's where I'm really starting today, introduce myself, understand that when I'm in the next few appearances, when I'm asking you to really push some things, I've got to put my infrastructure that I'm building for the 2021 event in front of a board of directors in Texas in February of this year. So I'm actually building things. It's not just going to be voted on, but I've got to put my first presentation and proposal to them now, and then next year, by the time I build the infrastructure, they will vote on it. So that's where I'm at. I seem a little pushy.
No worries.
All
We
right.
appreciate the introduction today.
Okay.
It's nice to meet you.
Have a good day.
Thank you very much. Public comment.
Good morning, Board.
Good morning.
And Happy New Year. Pardon my raspy voice. Like some of you, I'm trying to get over a bug here. My name is Jake Smith. I reside in the county. And I want to reaffirm what Supervisor Blackburn talked about this morning. Before you have to decide on a chair for the 2018 year. I believe if you do the right thing, the fair thing, this year you will nominate and vote in Supervisor Gitlin as the chair for the board for 2018. It's the right thing to do. You've all been elected by your constituents. Some of you have been re-elected. Some of you have served capably. Some of you will serve, all of you will serve capably. And I think it's the fair thing to do. So what I would do to simplify the process is I would base it on seniority first. The senior member takes the first shot. You go down the chain. If you have members that have equal service, alphabetical. And all 5 of you should have an opportunity to serve. You're all in good standing members, and I see no reason why it can't be done. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Public comment.
I'm Johnny Jacobs. I echo the same thing as Mr. Blackburn and this last gentleman here. Every day I get people that ask me, what's going on with the Board of Supervisors? Before you could go and approach anyone on the board, you could come to a meeting, it was very civil, everyone treated each other with respect. Anymore, for especially the last 2 years, it's been with animosity, there's been hatred, and it's mainly aimed at 2, Mr. Gitlin and Mr. Berkowitz. And it's uncalled for. You guys were put here for the people of Del Norte County. It's a beautiful place, and it's the thing that counts. But to try to eliminate their positions and keep them off of boards, doing their job, it's like you're saying you're arrogant. Hatred has no place for it. You need to put these guys in charge of committees and spread it out and let them be on the chairman board and let them do what their people in the county elected them to do. Quit this bit of trying to isolate and predetermine who's going to be on the board, chairman, and committees in this little clique. It just don't work. And as you see, the last group got eliminated. And a lot of it was because of that animosity and hatred and stuff that came about. The citizens don't like it and they won't accept it. I urge you to take and respond appropriately and work with each other. Get rid of that hatred. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment. Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the board. Oh,
Excuse me. Hi, good morning, and Happy New Year. My name is Steve Metz, and I'm the new superintendent at Redwood National and State Parks, and it's my absolute pleasure to be here, and thank you for taking a few moments today to say hi to me. You have my business cards now, so I would hope that you would just feel free to call me anytime to chat about anything. It's always helpful to have those offline chats as well, and I a little bit of my background, I'll keep it short. I did just recently come from Great Basin National Park as superintendent in eastern Nevada, but I'm no stranger to Northern California. I've worked extensively here, both as a deputy regional director in San Francisco, and then most recently as superintendent at Point Reyes National Seashore, just down the road. So I've always loved this place and the parks, and really am just so excited to be here, and really look forward to working with you all on promoting this wonderful place so that to the entire world. And this is a world-renowned resource that we all have here, and I really look forward to working with you all to both protect it and promote it, both for economic benefit as well as for protection of the redwoods. So thank you for that.
excellent, Steve. Thank you. Any questions from the board for Steve? Really appreciate your effort, Steve. More importantly, you got excellent folks here in the audience. I see one other individual here that we haven't seen in front of us before. Maybe he would like to make some comments too. And just to let you know that your staff member over here with Connie Battles Burns has been an excellent communicator with the county, keeping us on task and our 2x2s, more importantly, in the Find Your Park efforts. Excellent, and we really appreciate having her around.
Oh, great. Well, thank you for
Steve.
that feedback. Thank
Pleasure
you.
to meet you.
Welcome, Steve.
Thank you. Morning, Victor.
Hello. I'm a bit remiss. I've been in the seat here as district superintendent for North Coast Redwoods for a little over a year. I live in the community.
Why don't you introduce yourself for the board?
First name is Victor. Last name is bunch of consonants. It's pronounced Belayets. We haven't met. Thank you for giving me the time. We haven't met. Thank you for giving me the time. Some of the other supervisors I've had the opportunity to meet, and I appreciate that. I appreciate supervisors' time in 2x2s with our partners, National Park Service, as well as city manager. It's been very, it's rewarding, and it's good to be plugged in with the community. I was asked to give a kind of a briefing on some things that we have going. I'm headquartered out of Eureka, but I have a couple of days a week up in Crescent City. There was some recent national attention on Grove of the Titans and some efforts that we have to protecting the Grove and putting in a boardwalk in there. There was, because of the national attention, there have been additional donations coming in. We also have some movement from Save the Redwoods League, who's looking at supporting the project. We're in a planning phase at this point. We're going to begin secret compliance fairly soon. So we're having our specialists look at that and any potential impacts, and then looking at infrastructure and what it's going to look like. Mill Creek acquisition, 25,000 acres that was previously logged over. We're still offering the community and the public opportunities to go in there and take a look at the watershed. It's open on weekends from 9 to 5 through Redwood Park Conservancy and Tallawadine Stewards. We've done some salmon tours in there, so we brought people in and done special tours looking at some of the Chinook and coho and steelhead runs. We're also working in conjunction with Save the Redwoods League and National Park Service on an initiative that's pretty exciting. Looking at 25,000 acres and looking at doing a restoration for old growth characteristics, thinning operations, trail systems, and access into the area. That's an ongoing project. We're trying to get through our compliance for that. We have a road and trail plan associated with it, as well as a vegetation management plan. Every regulator you can think of wants to have comment on what we're doing. We're going to go for a programmatic regulatory permit approach where we'll characterize different types of treatments. And I'll give you one example. We have over 800 culverts in there. We'll be pulling some of the existing infrastructure for logging roads and skid roads that were there. To go after 800 individual permits to do treatments on culverts is daunting. We're going to try and characterize what that work would look like, typify it, and characterized as an A treatment, a B treatment, a C treatment, and try and go at this programmatically with our regulators. Federal, state, Fish and Wildlife, Army Corps of Engineers, regional water, everybody's going to want to have a say in there. Last chance grade, we've been working with partners on that. We serve on state parks, national parks, Caltrans,
Green Diamond.
Green Diamond, Yurok, Elk Valley, as well as Klamath involved. And from regulatory perspective on ours, we've issued archaeological investigation permits and right of entry permits for natural resource and beginnings of staking out what some of the alignments look like and looking at some of the early compliance. So that's ongoing. And once again, I really think of this area, it's wonderful. It is a great area for partnership. I appreciate the partnership we have with the county, the city, and other regulatory agencies and other agencies in the area, and look forward to being here for a while. So thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions for me.
Well, we did owe that for sure, but any questions for Victor?
Thank you all very
Thank
much
you,
for your
Victor.
time.
Really appreciate your time. All right, any further public comment? Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comment. County Council. Oh, sorry. Come on up.
I know I don't get to vote, but I get to talk.
Absolutely.
I know that you've already probably made up your mind what you're going to do, but I want you to know that I support Roger Gitlin sitting in that seat. Tell you a couple of reasons why. Two of you are going to be running for re-election this year, and that's going to take time, energy, and effort. And that means that you'll have more time commitment in other areas. Also, when you bring on a new person who has a different perspective on what's going on, the five of you have to vote on everything. So it's not like that person is God. It's not like that person has the total whatever. He's not the total say. He's one of you. He's kind of like the maestro in an orchestra. So putting someone in that chair isn't going to be the end of the world for those who have consistently voted against the things that he's voted for. And also, for whatever it's worth, I've been an attorney for a long, long time, and I used to do litigation. We go down there and we would fight like crazy. I mean, you know, to represent my client, that's the end of that. Within bounds, believe it or not, some of us actually follow the ethical rules, and I'm sure you do too. When we walked out of the courtroom, we talked to one another. We were cordial because doing that, if nothing else, even if you don't respect the other person really, you respect the office, you respect the position that they're in, and you'll get more done. It's just that simple. You're going to come up against the same people, same issues, same whatever throughout your entire career. You don't want to have somebody on the other side who's just going to vote against you because you miffed them. I was on a board and we had two people who, my goodness, I wouldn't say they ever met an ethical bone in their body, but I talked to them, I worked with them, we got things done. That being said, you'll do what you do, and we'll live with it, and hopefully it'll be a good thing. I'm out of time.
No worries. Thanks for your comments. Any further public comment? All right, I think we're going to bring it back to the board. County Council, anything to report out of closed session?
No reportable action.
Excellent. All right, we're going to move to the item that everybody seems to be talking about today in public comment, which is the nomination election of Chair of the Board of Supervisors. Do we have any nominations on the floor today?
Chair, I nominate Chris Howard, yourself, for chair.
Thank you.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further nominations?
I have a nomination, Mr. Chairman. We have an opportunity to make a change from what has been business as usual, and to select a chairman who I believe is highly qualified to be chairman of the Board of Supervisors, Del Norte County 2018. His name is Bob Berkowitz, Supervisor, District 5. He has a history of one of accomplishment on boards and commissions on which he has served. As president of the Northern California Classified School Commissioners Association, Supervisor Berkowitz was able to get a state law passed that gave California thousands of school workers appeal rights, which we all take for granted, but he secured them from what would only be termed as overbearing school boards. As chairman of the Del Norte County Board of Trustees, Bob Berkowitz was able to lobby Washington, D.C. to pass the first rural schools bill that resulted in an additional $12 million for our schools district that modernized every school in the district and included the one new high school track and gym floor. Bob Berkowitz is, as chairman of the board of the school board, got federal and state funds to build the new school resource center on Harding Street with 95% federal funding. When Gasky Mountain School extinguished due to the fire, Bob Berkowitz, with the support of our congressman, wrote a bill that resulted in the construction of a new school and gym. As chairman of the school board, Bob Berkowitz helped pass policies that resulted in increasing student test scores in almost every district in the school district. When our school buildings were falling apart because of lack of state maintenance funds, Bob Berkowitz went to work and helped get the public support for school bond. No school board has been passed in that time in the last 40 years prior to that. And as a member of the grand jury, Bob helped to convince a judge, the grand jury did, to force the closure of the rat and cockroach infested juvenile hall, and worked with our congressman and state senator to build a state-of-the-art new juvenile facility in Del Norte County. And just this last year, as a sitting supervisor, he got an appointment to speak directly with the White House about the need to get a bypass within a 5-year period for last chance grade. With all these things he has accomplished in his career, isn't it about time we had him lead us toward a brighter future as our chairman for 2018? I say yes, and that's why I'm nominating Bob Berkowitz to lead our board as chairman.
Thank you for that nomination. Do we have a second?
I second that. And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a nomination.
Absolutely.
I'd like to place in nomination the person we're all talking about today, Roger Gitlin. Since his election to the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors and continuing after his re-election in 2016, Roger Gitlin has been an agent for much needed change. He asks you, is your life in this beautiful place we call Del Norte County better today than last year or years preceding? I ask myself that very same question, and I have to admit, no. The quality of life is not improving. There seems to be an attitude on this board that we must accept discounted and dismissive treatment from our federal, state partners, and it permeates down to each one of us who dare to challenge or question the status quo. Del Norte County must make changes to improve the quality of life here. Roger Gitlin founded the Take a Bite Out of Blight program that you're all familiar with. He organized volunteer cleanups, graffiti abatement efforts that have installed a new level of pride here. This effort has been done with zero cost to the county. Recognizing the long-standing problem of Highway 101 South, he, along with former Supervisor Chuck Blackburn and community businessman Kurt Strimberg, formed the Last Chance Grade Advisory Committee. They gathered 35 letters of support from local governments and prominent private citizens along the 101 corridor. They sought support for a viable bypass within 5 years. Again, at no cost to the county. Roger has raised community concerns about the questionable practices at Sutter Coast Hospital in an effort to make the hospital and its practices transparent and improving services to our community. We all know he's fearless. He's not intimidated by some daunting challenges facing our financially strapped county. His outreach and response to anyone who contacts him is immediate and thorough. He is the consummate professional. These issues and so many more like them define Roger Gitlin and the contributions he's made to our board and Delaware County. And that's why it is my pleasure to nominate Roger Gitlin as our chairman for 2018.
Thank you for that nomination. Are you withdrawing your nomination?
I'll second.
You're going to second his nomination? So we need to withdraw the second nomination of Bob? Okay, very good, because it wasn't.
Vote on them and
Very good.
backwards order.
Understood. So we have a motion and a second on the table, two of them in this case. We'll take the second motion through, well,
Three.
all three. Okay. So we'll reverse order. The first motion will be to consider Roger Gitlin as chair for 2018, which was motioned by Supervisor Berkowitz and seconded by Supervisor Gitlin. Kylie, can you please take that motion?
Supervisor Hemmingson?
No.
Supervisor Cowan?
No.
Supervisor Howard?
No.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Okay. We'll take the second motion, which was the nomination of Supervisor Berkowitz by Supervisor Gitlin and seconded by Supervisor Berkowitz, if I recall correctly. Kylie, can you please take that motion?
Supervisor Cowan?
No.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
No.
Supervisor Howard?
No.
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
And the last one in reverse order, which was the nomination of your current chair, Chair Howard, motioned by Supervisor Cowan and seconded by Supervisor Hemmingson.
Supervisor Gitlin?
No.
Supervisor Berkowitz?
No.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor Cowan?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes. We're going to go ahead and then move to the nomination and election of Vice Chair of the Board of Supervisors. Do we have any nominations on the table?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a nomination.
Please, Supervisor Berkowitz.
I'd like to nominate the person who is currently Vice Chairman, Roger Gitlin, for the same position as Vice Chairman.
Thank you for that nomination. Supervisor Gitlin.
I'll accept.
Thank
Second.
you. And we have a second. Do we have any other nominations at this time?
I nominate Supervisor Hemmingson for the position of Vice Chair of the Board.
I would second that motion. Take the first motion first. Second motion first. Since we didn't discuss the vice chair, this was about chair during discussion, would we open it up for public comment on vice chair?
You can, yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead and open up this for public comment for vice chair of the Board of Supervisors.
Donna Westfall, 1st District, and I don't understand why there was no public comment in the last motion. Because it seemed to me that the fix was in. You three have run this board and this town into the ground. Terms like dysfunction, incompetence, lack of confidence, no growth, no jobs, no industry, forget last chance grade until you're all dead and gone. These are the issues, some of the issues, that need to be addressed very seriously, because if not, the town's going to turn into a ghost town. You're losing population. Or talk about vice chair position. When I sat on the city council, similar situation. Kelly Shalong was the mayor, and then the year passed, and she was mayor the second time when I was supposed to step in that situation. And as a result, we still have ongoing problems with the sewer system, the huge loan that they're going to have to address to either increase the sewer rates again, because they never addressed the issues of corruption during 2008 to 2012. So these things are ongoing, right? So Jerry has already been chairman 3 times. You want him now vice chairman. The fix is in. I say it's time for a change. There will be change. As you know, Martha McClure and David Finnegan are no longer around. And so there will continue to be change, because we're sick of the dysfunction, the lack of confidence, the incompetence, and it's time for a change. Please vote for Roger Gitlin. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment.
Bunch of clowns up there. Yeah, my name's Linda Setter. I'm from the county. First off, Chris Howard, you're going to be the chair. You have no credibility. You lied to the Republican women when you said that you never stated you wanted to raise property tax and sales tax, and your credibility sorely lacks. And why don't you elect Lillian Cowan? She doesn't know what she's doing, so we'll just make it a big circus up there even more. Nothing's getting done. No economic development, except for spending $33,000 a month on a ghost airport. Thank you very much. And y'all like that. And we have nothing to show for it, except for empty stores, boarded up windows, trashy town and county, and that's what you guys provide for us. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. Any further public comment on vice chair position? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the board. Kylie, can you please take up the second motion first, which is the nomination by Supervisor Cowan of Supervisor Hemmingson, which was seconded by myself.
Supervisor Berkowitz?
No.
Supervisor Gitlin?
No.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor Cowan?
Yes.
Chair Howard?
Yes. Okay, no need to take that second motion at this time. County Council, it was brought up by Ms. Westfall that we didn't address the chair piece for comment. I'd like you to address that, because I believe we did during public comment, which she did comment on today, but I want to make that clear before we leave this portion of the meeting.
Yeah. So it was addressed during the public comment, and those that wanted to comment on general matters that aren't specific action items of the board could do so. So I think that you're okay. If anybody could ask if anybody wants to, that didn't get to comment, would like to comment at this time, but the action has already been taken.
Thank you. I certainly would like to ask that question. So is there anybody specifically for the chairman that didn't comment that would like to comment at this time? Okay. That's what we just clarified with council. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to the
Mr.
consent
Chairman,
agenda.
may I speak, please? May I be recognized?
Please, Supervisor Gitlin.
You know, I feel the tension. It's one of those moments where, you know, you just don't know what's going on, but you have to get through it. And let us use this as a learning moment. It's unfortunate that there isn't what I think is a democracy existing on this board. It exists in the community, but it's not going to happen now. The three are decided, and that has to be respected and understood. So I'm going to go look forward. I'm going to look forward in a positive manner in attempting to work with my colleagues on this board, which I've been unsuccessful at in the past. So I need to look at myself to see what I can do to make some changes in myself, to work within this board, and somehow, some way, with God's help, try to find a way to work with my colleagues on this board, just so that we're heard, just so that our opinions are valued. We're not a threat. We represent real people like you who voted us in with at least 50% of the vote. It may not be yours, but it may be others. So that has to be looked at, and it has to be looked at in some kind of a professional and ethical manner. So having said that, let's look forward to 2018. Let's see if we can get along and see if we can figure out how to be dignified and respectful of one another.
Thank you, Supervisor. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on with the consent agenda at this time. Comments from members of the public may be heard at this time regarding any matter on the consent agenda. We have items 2 through 17, I believe. Let's go ahead and open that consent agenda up for public comment. Any public comment at this time? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Kylie, can you please pull the vote on the consent agenda?
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Cowan?
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Chair Howard?
Yes. All right, we're going to go ahead and take up budget transfer items, which are items on your agenda 18 through 22. I'm going to go ahead and spell those out, which is budget transfer item 01-01, budget transfer item 01-03, budget transfer item 01-04, budget transfer item 01-05, budget transfer item 01-06, and budget transfer item 01-07. Do we have a motion on the table?
Chair, on item number 18, no, budget transfer number 0102 is also included in that.
Oh, thank you for recognizing that, Kylie. And in item 18, as Kylie has highlighted here, budget transfer item 01-02. Do we have a motion on the table?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion for all of the budget transfer items just mentioned.
Thank you, Supervisor. And thank you, Supervisor Hemmingson. Public comment on budget transfer items. Okay. Seeing none, we can go ahead and bring it back to the board. Kylie, can you please pull the vote?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question on 18. I just wanted a clarification on this. Heidi, are you here? You are. Thank you. 18 had an indication of there was this CASB certification, the state, it's going from $1 to $4.
Yes, and that would be in jurisdictions that collect a business license, they were collecting $1.
Right.
Because Del Norte County doesn't collect a building license, we've never paid this fee. So the legislation now makes it so counties who don't collect
No, I
building-
understood that.
Okay, got it.
It also expired 12/31 of 2017. So that's the renewal, and it will sunset in 2023 and go back to $1. Is that my understanding?
Yes,
Okay,
that is
so
correct.
my question is what's the $3 going to? And then why is it being sunsetted in 2023?
I don't know the latter question. I would just presume that, I mean, that's a decision that the California, the Division of State Architects who's running the program, what they've decided upon. But the funds that we do collect will be used to send our building inspection division staff to training, so they will have the certifications needed to do assessments for accessibility.
Okay, thank you for the information.
welcome.
I know it's a modest amount of money, but the folks want to know where their dollars are going.
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? All right, we'll go ahead and pull the vote. Kylie?
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor Cowan?
Yes.
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Chair Howard?
Yes, let's go ahead and move on to general government business, which is item 24, approve the coastal zoning residential building height LCP amendment ordinance, adopt a resolution transmitting the board's approval to the California Coastal Commission, and direct the clerk of the board to transmit a summary of the ordinance to the newspaper for general circulation within 15 days of the passage of this. Chris, I believe, Mr. Hooper, you're here to help us out with this.
Morning. Yes, I'm back before the board this morning. This is based on a recommendation based on the previous introduction of the ordinance and the board direction to return with the ordinance at the previous meeting. If you recall, I did give a presentation. There were a couple different items we touched on. This particular item is just the coastal heights, so we're not going to be talking about the ADUs today. That'll be coming back separately. We'll post notice of that public hearing whenever we do it, and we'll take that up separately. So this is just specifically to the coastal heights. And I believe I did mention at the previous meeting, the proposal originated with a project that came forward in the Smith River area. It was a request for a variance for an overheight residence. The board acted appropriately in that case in denying the variance based on the lack of necessary legal conditions that are needed to exist in order for the variance to be granted. But what resulted from that meeting was direction to staff to look at the issue of the appropriateness of that 25-foot height limitation within residential areas within the California coastal zone. A couple different alternative options were put together and pitched, provided to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission ultimately recommended that the height limitation be increased simply from 25 to 30 feet. And of course still be subject to all the coastal development permitting processes that we're required to under the Coastal Act, as well as our local coastal program. However, when we pitched that request, again, simply increasing the height from 25 to 30 feet to the California Coastal Commission, they balked at it. They took exception. They didn't feel that it would adequately assess potential impacts to visual resources within the coastal zone. And so back to the drawing table. We did put together a couple of different alternative suggestions. We ultimately settled on a suggestion that would keep the increase from 25 to 30 feet, but it would include a review component as part of the coastal development permit process, where the Environmental Review Committee or the ERC would do a visual resources assessment. And this would be specific to coastal development permits that would come forward for projects above the 25 feet, specifically within identified areas in our local coastal program of either having a visual viewpoint or a visual corridor. I think is how we have it in the LCP. So what you have before you today would be the ordinance. Again, this was introduced and noticed at the previous meeting. The ordinance would actually, this is the actual ordinance that would implement that increase in height. You can see it's specific to, I think, 4 or 5 different residential zone districts. As well as the ordinance, we do have the necessary resolution of transmittal that'll be part of the LCP amendment packet that'll get sent off to the Coastal Commission for certification. Again, we've had numerous conversations with Coastal Commission staff. I believe we're at a point where they're comfortable with the project so that whenever this goes to the California Coastal Commission, it can hopefully be approved without any modifications. That's what we aim to do. Whenever you get modifications, you end up in a much more protracted process with the Coastal Commission. I believe we have a project that can be approved without those modifications. So the recommendation from staff today would be that the ordinance be approved, the resolution be adopted so that we can transmit that to the Coastal Commission for certification. That's it in terms of the presentation, but I'm certainly available if there's any questions.
Excellent. Questions from the board? Okay, Supervisor Gitlin.
Randy, great job. And again, it's long overdue. Now, let me just understand the protocol in this. It's 25 to 30 feet. Any secondary building remains at 16 feet. Is that correct? Any
Correct.
Like a garage or something like that, or any kind of other structure?
That's correct.
So should this board pass this ordinance amending Title 21, it will go to the Coastal Commission for approval or acceptance or adoption. Walk me through the protocol of what happens should this board approve this ordinance. What's the next step?
Okay, so just like any proposal to amend our certified local coastal program, those subsequent amendments would similarly have to be certified by the Coastal Commission. And so hopefully what happens today is that the board approves the ordinance, and that would indicate the county's support for the project. The Coastal Commission would then have to review it for consistency with the Coastal Act, the California Coastal Act, which is, obviously state law. We've done a lot of that legwork already with their staff in reviewing the project and whether it, meets the Coastal Act or doesn't. They feel that it does, and so hopefully what will happen is whenever they make their staff recommendation to the Coastal Commission, which, hopefully would be within the next few months or so, they can do so without any reservations. The Coastal Commission would, if they agree with our assessment of the proposal, certify the request, and it would come back to us as part of our LCP at that point.
Thank you. Any further questions from the board? Okay, we'd like to open it up for public comment at this time. Seeing no public comment, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the board. Do we have a motion to...
Mr. Chairman, I'll recommend a motion to approve the ordinance amending Title 21 to 25 to 30 feet, and then submitting this within the prescribed time period to the Coastal Commission. I'll make that motion at this time.
Would that include the accompanying of that to the newspaper for circulation?
Yes, I think that was within 15 days. That's part of this
that is
overall.
correct.
That's correct. That includes that publication. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Do we have a second on it?
I'll second.
We have a motion, a second. Kylie, can you please poll the vote?
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor Cowan?
Yes.
Chair Howard?
Yes. All right. Item number 25, which is receipt of a status report on levels of Lake Earls and Tolowa and possible action to adopt a resolution declaring an emergency as requested by Community Development Director. Ms. Cunstel is here with us today. Good morning.
Good morning. Since the writing of this report, the lake has gone up slightly. It's about 8 3/4 of a foot. The point where we end up having the impacts to our roads is around 9.5 feet. However, we are expecting some precipitation over the next couple of days, and based on a phone call this morning to the Eureka office of the Weather Service, we will have a wet pattern that'll be coming in early next week with an uncertain amount of precipitation, but they don't have a confidence level on it yet, but it could be anywhere from 3 to 8 inches. Our next meeting will be on the 23rd, so I'm not quite sure whether or not we want to, if you would like to make a decision today to declare an urgency allowing us to move forward with the permits. The permits generally take a few days to obtain, so it may be prudent to move forward today on adopting the resolution.
Understood. Questions from the board? No? Let's go ahead and open it up for public comment then. Any public comment on this issue? Oh! You're not
So
public,
when
but you're
we're
certainly
talking
on
about
comment.
Jeff Daniels, Delaware County Roads.
Good morning, Jeff.
So when we're talking about breaching the lake, we always have to keep in mind the safety aspect of, so if we get the permit and we have a big storm and dumps a lot of rain, it might not be safe to go out on the bar to actually breach that. So when you make your decision, please keep that in mind, safety of the workers out there doing that. So.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Any other public comment? All right, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the board. Do we have a motion to allocate some time?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we take option declaring an emergency and request the Community Development Director to process the permits.
Second.
Excellent. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? No. Kylie, could you please pull the vote?
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor Cowan?
Yes.
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Chair
Yes.
Howard?
Yes. All right, item number 26 is direct staff to negotiate a contract extension and rate increase as requested by Delaware Ambulance. Please
Mr.
present.
Chairman, I'm going to have to recuse myself from this item in that I have a business relationship with an employee of the company.
Thank you very much, Supervisor. CEO Serena, are you presenting this today?
Yes, I am. I see Mr. Sandler's here, but I'll do a quick overview.
Please.
Delaware Ambulance has come to us requesting a contract extension and a rate increase, and I'm asking the board to give preliminary approval to enter into those negotiations. There is an existing franchise agreement. It expires in 2022, and in the past, Delaware Ambulance has come before the board asking for 5-year increase or extensions. And at this time, there's also the rate increase. And we will come back with information to the board as we go through this. I've done a little bit of preliminary work, anticipating that the board would give me that direction, and talking with the jail, North Coast EMS, and a couple others getting information. Delaware Ambulance has provided a narrative as well as information in regards to where they are comparatively with other rates for other providers. And at this time, if the board so directs, we'll enter into those negotiations and come back to the board with a recommendation.
Thank you, CAO. Public comment, please. This is a great opportunity if you would like to say anything, or even have Mr. Pritchett come. But all right. Seeing no public comment at this time, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the board. Do we have a motion on the table?
I'll make that motion to
We could just take direction, but we
take
could do a
direction.
motion.
Is it a direction, or is it just, okay, for our CAO to begin the process of contract extension and rate increase discussion?
All right, so let's go ahead by consensus.
Yes.
Looking forward to it, Jay. Looks like you have direction. Appreciate your time. Thanks for showing up anyway. Yes, please. Alrighty, let's go ahead and move on with item number 27, which is authorize Supervisor Cowan and Supervisor Berkowitz to travel to Ritzenden, Takata, Japan to represent the Delaware County Board of Supervisors in ongoing sister city program relations, with funds for travel being paid for by Ritzenden, Takata, Japan. I also see our fellow city council members here in the audience that will be traveling on this trip if and when a date is determined, but in lieu of having something solid and confirmed at this point, I'd like to move forward with finding some representation from the Delaware County Board of Supervisors to make that trip. We'll go ahead and open it up for public comment, if there is any public comment on this item. Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the board. Do we have a motion from the board?
Move for approval.
We have a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none. Kylie, please poll the vote.
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor Cowan?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Chair Howard?
Yes.
Chair, before we move on to the legislative items, I'd just like to clarify my previous answer. So I was not so eloquent, so I think I ought to clarify just for the public, as I think it's better to do it on the front end than on the back end. So back to the Brown Act. I hate going back to items, but just trying to clarify. Brown Act requires that public may comment on agenda items. Every agenda for regular meetings shall provide an opportunity for members of the public to directly address the legislative body on any item of interest to the public before or during the legislative body's consideration of the item. So the words are before or during. And so the reason that I didn't think that either the vice or the chair appointment needed another round of public comment, but I stated you could take public comment for the vice, is because the general public comment had already occurred. So technically in our agendas, as long as there is a space for public comment, that's the minimum that the law requires. However, we do give people the opportunity to comment on every single item because, one, it's easier that way. That way it's considered when that item is considered. But it's not necessary under the law. And so that's why I didn't press for the public comment to occur on the chair, because people had already commented on that and understood that that was a time that they could do so. But I said you could on the vice chair because people didn't address that at that time. Legally, the way that it is fine. I suggested that the chair allow anybody else, even though the action had been done, to comment, just so that people, anybody who didn't get to say what they wanted could be said, but it's not a cure and correct, and it wasn't a legal fix. So I don't want that to be confusing for people. So if you have any more questions about that, I'm happy to answer it. It took me a moment. I'm getting over a cold, so to make that a little bit more eloquent in my response to you.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Okay. Thank you for that clarification, Council. All right, we're going to go ahead and move to legislative and budget issues. Item number 1 is consider miscellaneous legislative and budget matters pertinent to the County of Del Norte. Authorize the chair to sign and send appropriate letters with respect to matters pending before the state or federal government. CAO.
Currently, we don't have any additional letters pending. Just an overview that the 2018 session has begun in Sacramento, and you can imagine that they will be coming forward with any new legislation. Last year, I don't know, it was 30,000 bills, so I'm sure there are going to be a lot this year. As far as the governor's budget, we will probably see a revise coming up pretty soon. On the federal level, there's a lot of debate over DACA, which appears to be holding up a lot of other issues because of the partisanship on that. And one of the things being held up is an omnibus bill, and that is what funds a lot of things, $1 trillion basically. So we're following that, because once that happens, then there may be advocacy that we need to jump on immediately, depending on where they start looking at the funding. As far as locally, the mid-year budget review will start happening in January, and probably the first meeting in February, you'll get a report. The auditor controller has sent out the notice to all departments while we've been at the meeting.
Thank you. Questions for Jay? Okay. Public comment on any of the things that Jay spoke about? All right, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the board and move on to item number 29, which is discuss and direct staff to draft a letter of support addressed to Senator McGuire requesting a portion of Highway 101 to be memorialized in dedication to Harold Del Ponte, who served as the Del Norte County's 5th District Supervisor from 1953 through 1973 as requested by Gerald D. Cochran. See, Mr. Cochran is here today. Thank you for coming back before us, Jerry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Happy New Year's to you all. I was requested by a high school classmate to do this for Harold Del Ponte, who happened to be a staunch Republican, so you all know that being a Democrat isn't necessarily what you do have to do all the time. I met with the tribe on the 27th of December. They told me they'd get back to me last week. They haven't got back to me yet. And what happened, Senator McGuire's staff, is that about the first mile of that road is in or on the reservation, or within the boundaries of the reservation. And I mentioned to him and there was some discussion with the council that if they do that person then it becomes responsible for cleaning the highway. And I told Chairman O'Rourke that'd be a little difficult because generally these people are long past and we don't have that ability. But anyway, I did mention to him that if they disagreed with having that portion of the highway dedicated, that we'd merely move the marker down the road to the other part of the reservation or off the reservation and go all the way to the county line, which is about 4 miles. And Caltrans requests, I know Jay has done quite a bit of work looking into this. Generally they like 5 miles, but the legislature can change, do whatever they want. So with your concurrence, then we'll move forward. Hopefully the Yurok tribe or council will get back to me and not have a problem with it, since Harold did represent those folks through many years of hardship. And not only the floods that wiped out the town, but also the new town site. Harold was very helpful and instrumental during that time when they developed that. And then the county was on the hook for, it seemed to me it was like about $500,000 in federal funding, and the county finally, I think about 90, decided the best thing to do would give that property to the Yurocks, because they were up and coming then, and Doug Bosco had done the work on providing them with a reservation, and whereas the Hoopaws have their reservations and the Yurocks were left out in the cold with nothing, so Doug had done that for them. But anyway, we're just kind of thinking we'll finish out with recognizing Harold one way or the other, and I've attached a kind of biographical sketch of what he had all done. So anyway, I'd certainly appreciate the board's support in this little project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jerry.
You're welcome.
We'll open it up for public comment at this time. Well, this is not the public, but we certainly welcome these comments.
Good morning again. Heidi Kunstl, Crescent City. I just wanted to say that I am, he's my great uncle, and very proud of his accomplishments, and I think that this would be a really nice recognition for his contribution to Del Norte County, and I think he would be really, really pleased.
Thank you, Heidi, for those words. Any other public comment? Great. We'll go ahead and bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chairman,
we have some direction.
I'd like to make that motion.
Second.
Okay, which is to discuss and direct staff to draft a letter of support to Senator McGuire to dedicate a portion of our state highway to Harold Del Ponte. So we have a motion and a second on the table. Any further discussion? All right. Kylie, can you please pull the vote?
Supervisor Cowan?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Chair Howard?
Yes. All right, item number 30, discuss and direct staff as to the renaming of, are you okay? All right, very good. Okay, discuss and direct staff as to the renaming of the Congressman Don Clausen Highway, Memorial Highway, as requested by the Board of Supervisors. Jay, we had directed staff to take a look at this a little further at our last meeting, and can you please report out?
You did, and I went back through the Caltrans policy manual in regards to memorial highways. This is a little bit different because this is changing the existing designation to memorial. As Mr. Cochran mentioned, occasionally Caltrans will change the rules in the process because most of this goes through a legislative process. So many times when the naming of the highways came forward, it was really up to the legislation, and Caltrans would follow through with that. But it's outlined in the report regarding who the highways can be named after as far as memorializing, how that goes forward, and essentially it would be making a recommendation to the legislature. They would have to pass a resolution. The only thing that I would note in here is that they do say that the naming must be done without cost to the state. Cost for signs and plaques must be paid for by local and private sources. So we may want to reach out. I think Supervisor Berkowitz has an idea in regards to reaching out to the legislature to cover any of those costs. But in general, the entire process is laid out here, and it's fairly straightforward. It's up to the legislature to pass a resolution and go forward to both the Senate and the Assembly.
Thank you, Jay. Supervisor Berkowitz.
Well, I think what we could do is, in a recommendation to our Assemblyman and Senator, is ask them to put forward legislation where the state will pay for it, considering we're not asking for something that's brand new. We're not asking for the designation, because the designation of the Don Clausen Highway has already been there. All we're saying is, in order to end the confusion that some people think is there, that he's no longer our congressman, he's Unfortunately, he's dead. So we need to change that and let people know that, no, he's not our congressman. Yes, we should be able to do that. We've had a number of instances where there are memorial highways named after, of course, those people that are no longer with us that are memorial highways.
Thank you, Supervisor. Any further discussion from the board?
Jay,
Supervisor.
I did have a question. Do we actually have a dollar cost? What are we talking about? 4 signs, 2, 1 entering, 1 exiting on both north and south? What are we talking about cost-wise?
I have no cost associated with that at this point.
I think that was one of the questions asked, what does this cost to do this? And we don't have an answer at this point as to, it can't be very expensive, modest, but I think that would, there will be signs made up for Supervisor Del Ponte. That's going to be a cost. So I think they're very kind of similar. So I just wondered, you don't have that information.
No, I don't have that information.
Any further discussion from the board?
Yeah,
Supervisor
I
Mason?
still, I still have a real issue with this particular thing and just taking up this board's time on something that I think is so just ridiculous that we're changing something. I happen to talk to the family member and they don't understand the reasoning behind it. He was alive when that highway was dedicated. He hasn't been our congressman for 35 years. And if you're confused at this point that he's not our congressman, you're going to be confused forever. So I see no reasoning behind this. It's not in Delmark County. I think it's already taken up too much time, and I'm taking up too much time. I cannot be in favor of this. Now, if it was coming from a legislator and we were going to be supportive of a legislator like Mr. Cochran did, I think that would be a different thing. But I just don't think this should get any action.
Supervisor Berkowitz.
Mr. Chairman, if we can get this done at no cost to the county, what difference does it make? I don't see a problem here.
Thank you for the discussion.
Yeah, it's a letter. It's not going to hurt anybody. I asked Bob the other day, my only concern is it's not even in our county, or part of it isn't, is that you reach out to Humboldt County and see how they feel before we do anything. And if it is of no cost to us, that's one thing. But I think there is a cost to those signs. They're thousands of dollars, I'm sure. And, I'd like to know that. But I have no problem sending off a letter at all requesting this. I think it's a long process, and I think it's a shot in the dark. But I do think that we need Humboldt County in on this, since it is their road, their county.
Okay. Very good. Let's go ahead and open it up for public comment.
Okay, when I see a sign on the highway, I don't care, as long as it tells me the speed or what I'm supposed to be doing. But these signs, it's just another feel-good thing. I don't care what legislative body it is. I think it's a waste of time and taxpayer money for all this feel-good bull crap. We've got serious issues in our county that are not being dealt with. And you guys want to talk about a damn sign, number 29 and 30. When are we going to do something different around here and get something going for our town and our county? Why don't you guys think about that?
Thank you for your comment. Any further public comment? Okay, seeing none, we're going to go ahead and bring it back to the board. I don't think we have consensus on direction to staff to write the letter, so in that case, I'd like to bring up a motion at this time if there's a motion available.
I'll make that motion that we discuss and direct the staff to the renaming of Congressman Don Clausen Highway to Congressman Don Clausen Memorial Highway, and that we stipulate in the letter that there should be no cost to Delmark County.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion from the board?
Supervisor Berkowitz, are you going to check with Humboldt County?
I can do that.
Thank you.
All right. Kylie, please pull the vote.
Supervisor Cowan?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
No.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Chair Howard?
Yes. All right. Committee reports. Let's go ahead and kick it off. Supervisor Berkowitz, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last month, I, along with all of you, attended the Pacific Shores Blight Cleanup Ceremony. It's a relief to see that this area may finally get cleaned up after all. I also attended the meeting of the Klamath Chamber of Commerce, where I fielded a number of questions surrounding the failure to get additional funds from our board to help increase tourism in the southern part of the county. It was my honor and pleasure to be asked by the residents of the Birch Tract to judge their Christmas decorations. We had quite a few entries, and it was a real pleasure for Bonnie and myself to do that. And lastly, Bonnie and I were able to take a vacation that included a 7-day Mexican cruise, a chance to get out of Del Norte County and the weather and spend some nice sunshine days. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Kell.
I unfortunately missed the Pacific Shores. I was with Assemblyman Wood. He happened to be in town that day and was holding a local business leaders roundtable. So I chose to go over there. It was a good meeting. I always love working with our assemblymen, our senators, our congressmen when they are available to us. I also took a week off and went to Southern California with my family. Spent a few days alone with my girls in Santa Barbara, Solvang, Wrightwood, kind of cruised around, and then met up with the rest of the boys and the family and took them all to Disneyland. Came home, enjoyed a quiet Christmas at home, which was nice. After the holidays, attended the Visitors Bureau meeting. For the past year, we've been trying to get things moving, as has been mentioned here in this community. And we've been working on getting an RFP together to bring in a marketing firm to market Del Norte County properly. It's been a long haul, but we were able to get RFPs out before the holidays, and on the 29th of this month, we were able to narrow it down and interview in person 3 candidates and choose a company out of Bend, Oregon that I'm really looking forward to. Having someone who can really take Del Norte County and get it out there. I think tourism is just huge, and it's where we need to go. So that's been a long haul and a long year with that. So it was a win, and a good win, and I think we need to pay attention to all the good things that are going in our community. There's tons of things that have happened in this past year, and I think unfortunately those get overbeared, not spotlighted as much as they should. We had an airport authority meeting, another good thing. Grants are moving forward. Foundation is poured on the new terminal. We're going forward with a new terminal. We're bringing in jet service. Guys, that's huge. That's huge. It's another big win for this county. Outside of there wasn't a lot of meetings going on. I do want to recognize 2 different departments that were really highlighted this weekend. It was the beginning of basketball season. Our maintenance department has done a phenomenal job. Sitting in there Saturday with my grandson's game and the community seeing the gym cleaned up and painted and the new floor and just everything. Everybody was like, wow. You know, they walked in and was like, wow. And that's great. I mean, that's work in progress. And so that was the maintenance end of it, but then also seeing just, I think, and I'm going to get these numbers wrong, I know there's over 600 kids playing, probably closer to 700 kids. So I also want to say kudos to Kelsey and the rec department. She made it look seamless, and I know it couldn't have been. It's kind of one of those things of corralling cats. And it was a successful weekend. 653, see? So it keeps building. That's a lot of kids. It's a lot of kids that we're keeping active, healthy, off the streets, focused, and working together. And that is extremely important in this community as well. So she's doing an excellent job. Last weekend was a wonderful weekend, and just the community talking about it, sitting in those stands listening to it. That's another positive thing and good thing that's happening in our community. So hats off to Kelsey as well. And that's it for... Oh.
I'd also like to mention Justin Islis, who is the recreation assistant, and about, I don't know, 30 part-time temporaries that include our varsity and JV basketball players, both girls and boys, as well as other part-time employees, and volunteer coaches, because all of the younger kids have volunteer coaches, and it is as everybody knows. It's my favorite program and always has been.
Well, we appreciate your support of that program, Jay, and I know it's grown from under 100 kids to where it is today, and that's pretty significant for this community to keep those kids involved in activities that are athletic and not sitting behind a TV necessarily with a Game Boy in hand. So really appreciate those efforts, and please pass along our best wishes to Kelsey and her continued efforts to get folks out to that basketball court. Supervisor Gitlin, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. After our, I think our meeting was December 9th, last meeting, I too was participating in the cleanup at the Pacific Shores. What a mess, but we seem to have some light at the end of this tunnel, and I'm excited to see that we'll be removing a big eyesore from our community, and we have to follow it up and make sure it stays clean. Other than spending a great deal of family time away from Delaware County, we did participate in a number of things when we got back. There was a group of stakeholders, people who use the back roads, who are a little confused about the option this board took with regard to the travel management plan. Those are those roads that no one travels on except those who really love the area and get back in the hills. And there was some concern that the option which this board selected was changed. So they asked me, this group, several members, said, would you please look into it? And I did. I spoke to Mr. Hooper, Randy Hooper, our Assistant Community Development Director, and then after looking at the changes, they were really not really changed. It was kind of a misunderstanding. So everybody knows that, so the clarity on this thing is that there are 630 road trails up there. The total amount of miles is 651, and it was slightly reduced to about 507 miles. That's called a recording of decision, excuse me. And it was really a non-issue. But the important thing is a meeting was set up, the air was cleared, and people got their questions answered, and everyone left with the understanding that their clarity, the cloud over it, any changes was simply not there. So that's good news. Also came across news that the City of Citrus Heights in Sacramento has started what they think is a very positive effort in securing opioid and other dangerous drugs from their population of juveniles. So there's a message to the parents. And I have since forwarded that to Health and Human Services Director Heather Snow, who is going to pursue this to take it before our local folks and to see if this is viable for our county and what the costs are, if any, if it's a pilot program, to see if how we can keep dangerous drugs and opioids out of the hands of juveniles. And Director Snow will be pursuing that, and hopefully we'll hear back more on that later. Got an interesting letter from Humane Society and its director lobbying for the retention of a certain volunteer employee who was being just because of temporary. She doesn't have so many hours, and I looked into it, and I spoke to Justin Riggs, our animal control individual, our director, and also he handles agriculture, and he agreed this was a valuable employee. We sat down and they worked it out where this very valuable employee could be retained. But then another issue came up as people approached me as I did an outreach that there are many in this community who want to help government do its job, and they want to donate money for this purpose of causes that, for instance, the animal shelter needs new help, more help, and we simply don't have the budget in it. The budget's already been set, so we really don't have that flexibility. And I think in the coming weeks we're going to look at ways in which those of you who in the community want to donate your funds earmarked for certain purposes in government, that's going to be explored to see if we can help folks in our county do their job easier. And those who want to use your discretionary income, we welcome that. And we need to find the proper vehicle. I'll be sitting down with our county council to see what's right, how we can do it, if it's possible, so the greater good is achieved. Also, we did a blight project in the last week or so, take a bite out of blight, the removal of graffiti and maintaining it. And that also received a number of constituents' calls, one of which was from a gentleman who felt he'd been discriminated in trying to bring his dog into one of our local markets, and he was asked to leave by security officer. And we did some research, and again, not all laws are perfect, but this is federal law. And really, it's very clear that if you identify yourself and you have a service animal, you are pretty much allowed to go anywhere in any place you want, whether there's food or whatever it is, as long as you identify this is a service dog. There's no paperwork necessary. I can tell you that there are some questions that bring to my mind about mixing animals and hair and dander and heads of lettuce all in one sentence. It does concern me, but this is federal and it has to be addressed, and I'm going to do an outreach to our Congressman Huffman to see how we can adjust and perhaps massage some of these so that there isn't any compromise of health and safety laws with regard to people claiming they have a service animal when in fact it is not, but just by claiming it, that's good enough for the community, that's good enough for the to satisfy federal law. Also, there is a water report, the North Coast Regional Water Study. We got a report in. 2 interim reports were followed up about the pristine status of the Smith River and what, if any, the lily growers have had impact on it. And I looked at the results and the conclusions. There is no negative impact. The sloughs, there are a couple of spots where sloughs, but are somewhat little higher numbers, but the Smith remains one of the cleanest rivers in North America, and it's no concern should anyone have in this community that that's not an absolutely antiseptically clean river. And that is my report.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Hemmingson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I also went to the Pacific Shores cleanup kickoff get-together that we had. And then after that meeting, probably over the last month, I've probably had 6 or 7 strategy meetings and tours of Pacific Shores and finding out how we were going to start the cleanup and the process, and we're working on that. There should be people out there this week to get going on that. So pretty happy to report that. We did have a local transportation commission meeting, had a dinner, kind of a going away dinner for Randy Hatfield. So that was kind of nice to recognize him again for all his contributions to the county and the fair. Had a meeting with Wes White from the Harbor to discuss issues that they're having. Had a Natural Resource Committee meeting. We had a Smith River Collaborative meeting where where they signed off on our first project, which is the Little Jones Creek project. So pretty happy to hear or to be part of that. Might have seen it in the paper. Also, we started looking at our next project. So we're trying to get these things going so we can get some treatment done in our forest, fuels treatment, timber stand improvements. We've got a long ways to go, so we need to keep after that. Had a North Deal meeting where, of course, we've talked about last chance grade, 199, 197. That was, it's kind of ongoing, but the process is moving along. There's geotechnical studies that are going to be starting this year. The risk assessment should be completed this year. It's a process, but and I know that we're all anxious to see things going, but it's pretty tough to push a rope, so we're trying our best. Celebrated my grandson's 4th birthday. That was always fun. Had a going away luncheon for Dr. Polidor that I attended. Sorry to see him go. He's going to be down in the Sacramento area working for, of all people, Sutter Health. So it's a shame that we lost him and he ends up going down there, but that's a whole nother political thing. Had a whale conference call having to do with Dungeness crab gear and interaction with whales. Had a conference call on that is continuing on. As was reported out, had a meeting with the Forest Service, user groups, community development, for an explanation of how the travel management record of decision came down and what that meant to the users, and they seemed to be satisfied with the outcome there. As Supervisor Callan said, we had a Border Coast Regional Airport Authority meeting. Those grants seem to be moving forward. We're hoping to have jet air service by the 1st of March. So if not sooner, we're certainly hoping for that. And then yesterday we had a Tolowa, Supervisor Howard and I had a Tolowa Dene Nation 2x2. Most of the discussion was centered around their lands legislation, but they didn't have a lot to report on that. We discussed other things, and are hopefully going to continue to partner up with them in other projects. So we're looking forward to that, and that's it for me.
Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and line out a few. Try not to discuss too many or duplicate too many. Did have a meeting with staff with our last cleanup on Fred Haight Drive of the Pink Hotel. I think we're working diligently with our neighbors out there to try to get this issue taken care of. Staff, especially Code Enforcement Officer Mello, has done an incredible amount of work to try to get our last property cleaned up. And we're running into a few hurdles there, more specifically with EPA and testing. My hope is that we could find a way to bring that landowner into justice to clean up and abate that mess. If not, the county's going to be saddled with that expense, and it could be pretty costly. I hope that's not the case, because that would chew up 100% of our contingency budget probably and tap into any of our capital funds that we had reserved for repairing leaky roofs this year. But we really need to bring this landowner into compliance and really get this property abated. I appreciate the patience of the Smith River community, but there's only so much patience that you could have. And we do need to find a solution to this. Staff, I appreciate all your efforts to continue moving this piece forward, because I know it's taken everybody, including our CEO, County Council, and Community Development. But thank you again for those efforts. As Jerry had indicated, the meeting with Tolowa Dene Nation was an excellent discussion yesterday. Participated in the agenda review, and also, as Supervisor Gitlin mentioned, discussions with the folks that were concerned about some part-time employees leaving from the Ag Department. Shared those concerns with staff, and I'm glad we're going to have some momentum over there in the Ag Department to keep on valuable employees. Also, basically met with representatives from the Del Norte Farm Bureau specific to the draft report that was released by the North Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board, specific to the assessment that's been going on for years with the what was essentially water quality issues with either pesticides or herbicides that were being applied to lily fields. That assessment and those water tests are going to be made public shortly. My intent is to have the North Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board revisit Del Norte County here in the near future once that report's released. So this could be a transparent process for all those involved, and similar to what Rebecca Fitzgerald did with us 2 years ago, have them present the facts of that report so there's no confusion on the public's part in moving forward if there's any response that is necessary from the County Board of Supervisors. Did attend the blight cleanup at Pacific Shores. I did definitely want to thank Supervisor Hemmingson for seeing this process through. I know it started long before he became supervisor, but with those efforts, we hope to really curtail some of the dumping that we see out there at Pacific Shores, and I think it took all the efforts of the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors to get this pushed forward, but especially Supervisor Hemmingson's efforts to see it through with County Council's help. Would like to mention, as was expressed earlier by several folks, that it is National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. Sheriff, thanks for sticking around. I know you'll be certain to pass along that fact to your officers about how much this board does appreciate their efforts towards public safety in this area. You in particular have thought well outside the box as it concerns public safety here, and today and last month specific with the Tolowadini Nation and now the Yurok tribe. It's a glowing example of how we could add positions essentially to our public safety record to help let this community know that we haven't forgotten about them and public safety is still a top priority issue for us. So thank you again, and make sure to pass along the word from this board about how much we appreciate their efforts here. And we'll continue recognizing them this month and including at our next upcoming meeting. And finally, I'd like to end, you know, took the kids. They don't get a chance to see their dad much during the year. Obviously, things pull me away, including this board, but they did get a chance to spend some time with their dad in Peru this year. It was a real grounding experience. They did get a chance to see some cool sights like Machu Picchu. They did get a chance to help me wrestle a 17-foot anaconda. And handle some sloths and macaws. But the coolest part of the trip, and the one that really helps to ground kids that are just reaching their teenage years, Gabe turned 13 on this trip. We spent some time in the Andes with some H-2A visa workers that we've hired through our dairy business in Cedarville to help produce hay. And spending time with their family was absolutely incredible. The recognition of education in their society, which for a preschool graduation, which we attended, that took 5 hours for 4 and 5-year-olds, was insane. It was almost similar to a quinceañera, which I've seen many times, but the recognition of kids, the party they put on for them, absolutely insane. I did not mind sleeping on a piece of wood for 4 nights. It was tough. The altitude clearly affected me. Over 10,500 feet, I go downhill pretty quick, but I really appreciate, more importantly, our relationship with our friends in Peru and their efforts to help keep business strong here in our community, and more importantly, grounding my children in what it's like to be in a third world country and to not have much, because it really makes us appreciate what we have here in the United States, and especially in our county of Del Norte. With that, we'll go ahead and close the meeting. Thank you all for your attendance today. Look forward to seeing you next couple weeks.